I never imagined how one small object could unravel everything I thought I knew. It was just a forgotten earring, barely noticeable, wedged between the seat and the door handle. But when I found it, I immediately knew something was wrong. It wasn't hers. I had seen my wife's jewelry countless times, her simple, elegant pieces that matched her style. This one was different. It was delicate, with a sparkle that seemed too bold, too extravagant for her. My heart pounded as I stared at the earring, the weight of what it might mean slowly sinking in. I picked it up, turning it over in my fingers. The design was unfamiliar, and the stone glittered in a way that made my chest tighten. I didn't want to think about the implications, but I couldn't stop myself. The pieces slowly began to fall into place, the late nights, the quick, fleeting phone calls, the odd silences when I asked her about her day. This wasn't just a random, innocent mistake. The earring told a story I wasn't ready to hear. I didn't know what to do with it at first. I couldn't just ignore it, it was there, sitting in my hand, undeniable. At the same time, I didn't want to face the truth. But the truth was staring me in the face. That small, glittering piece of jewelry didn't belong to my wife. And if it didn't belong to her, whose was it? I sat back in the driver's seat, staring at the earring, trying to breathe through the wave of panic that rushed over me. The car smelled faintly of her perfume, and the sight of her seatbelt still clipped in place made my stomach twist. She had been here, in this very spot, and I had never noticed. How many times had she been sitting in this seat without me seeing what was right in front of me? I pulled myself together and slipped the earring into my pocket. I needed to think. I needed to understand what was happening, but I didn't know how to approach this. It felt like walking into a room full of broken glass, unsure of which step would shatter everything. When I got home, she was already in the kitchen, humming as she prepped dinner. She looked up as I walked in, her smile wide, her eyes bright. "Hey, you're home early. How was your day?" Her casual tone hit me like a punch. How could she be so normal? How could she be this unaware of the storm brewing in my mind? "It was fine," I muttered, feeling the weight of the earring in my pocket. You need help with dinner?" She shook her head, her face still lit up with a kind of ease that made my throat tighten. "No, I've got it covered. You should relax." I nodded, but all I could do was watch her. She moved around the kitchen like she always did, as if nothing was out of place. As if I didn't know about the earring. As if nothing had changed. I tried to focus on what she was saying, but my mind kept drifting back to the moment in the car, to the earring, to the question that had lodged itself in my chest. How would I even begin to ask? What could I say that wouldn't sound like an accusation, like I was already sure of the answer? But I was sure, in the deepest part of me, that I had just uncovered something I wasn't ready to face. "I'm going to take a quick shower," I said suddenly, needing to escape the suffocating silence. She looked up at me, eyebrows raised. "Okay, sure. I'll call you when dinner's ready." I nodded, making my way upstairs to the bathroom. Once I was alone, I leaned against the sink, staring at my reflection in the mirror. The words I wanted to say were stuck in my throat. The truth was hiding just beneath the surface, but I wasn't ready to pull it out. Not yet. I tried to breathe, tried to calm my racing heart, but all I could think about was the earring. And the more I thought about it, the more it became clear, this wasn't an accident. This wasn't a coincidence. This was something bigger than I was willing to admit. When I stepped out of the shower, I heard her call me from downstairs. "Dinner was ready," she said. It was funny, how normal everything felt, how we moved through the motions like we hadn't just had a small piece of our lives shattered. As I stood there, towels draped over my shoulders, I realized something. I couldn't go back to the way things were. Not after what I had found. As I walked downstairs to join her, the question that had been running through my mind all evening finally slipped past my lips. "I found something today." She froze for a moment, her hands stilling on the plate she was setting on the table. "What do you mean?" I swallowed, trying to steady myself. "I found an earring in the car. It wasn't yours." Her face went still. Her eyes flickered toward the counter before locking with mine. The air between us shifted, thickening with something I couldn't name. The silence was louder than any words we'd spoken. Her reaction told me everything. Her face froze, the color draining from her cheeks, and in that single moment, every thought I had been wrestling with crashed into me with the force of a wave. She didn't say anything right away. She didn't even move. It was as if time had stopped, her gaze fixed on me with an intensity that bordered on panic. And I was left standing there, holding the weight of what I had just said, watching her silently. The silence stretched on, unbearable and thick, and I could feel every inch of her tension radiating toward me. I had expected something, maybe an explanation, maybe confusion, but not this. Not this emptiness that seemed to fill the room. I swallowed, trying to find my voice, trying to keep the rush of emotions from spilling out of me. She blinked and quickly looked away, a nervous smile curling on her lips. What do you mean? An earring? Her voice was strained, as if she was trying too hard to sound casual. Where did you find it? In the car, I replied, my voice low, controlled. It was wedged between the seat and the door. She didn't respond immediately, her fingers tightly gripping the edge of the table. I watched her try to collect herself, but I could see it, the brief flicker of fear that crossed her face before she quickly masked it. Maybe it's yours, she said, her tone too quick, too rehearsed. I don't know, maybe I dropped it last week or something. I don't wear earrings all the time. No, this isn't yours, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, even though my heart was pounding in my chest. I've seen your jewelry, and this earring, it's not the kind you wear. It's different. Her eyes darted around the room, avoiding mine. The words didn't come easily, and when they finally did, they felt like a lie. I'm sure it's nothing, she said, her hands now trembling slightly as she set the dishes down on the table. Maybe you just didn't notice it before. The excuses were coming too fast, and they didn't match the panic in her eyes. I knew she was trying to cover something up, but the truth wasn't in her words. I took a step closer, the air between us charged with something unspoken, something darker. Who else was in the car, then? I asked, my voice low. If it's not yours, whose is it? She faltered, just for a split second, before she looked back at me. But instead of the usual calm, there was a crack in her expression, a hesitation that spoke volumes. What do you mean? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't let it go. You know what I mean. If it's not yours, then whose is it? This isn't just some mistake. You've been lying to me. For the first time in years, I saw her flinch. The mask she'd been wearing cracked, and in its place was something raw, something I couldn't place. She opened her mouth as if to speak, but no words came out. Instead, she simply took a step back and collapsed onto the nearest chair, her face suddenly pale. She started, but the words died on her lips. I didn't mean for this to happen. I stood there, watching her, heart sinking with every passing second. Didn't mean for what to happen? I demanded. What's going on? She closed her eyes, as though gathering the courage to finally face the truth. When she opened them again, I saw something I hadn't expected, tears, barely held back, threatening to spill over. And that's when I knew. The truth was much more complicated than I had imagined. I don't know how to explain it, she said softly, her voice trembling. But I've been seeing someone else. The words hit me like a physical blow. I staggered back slightly, not knowing whether to be angry, confused, or devastated. What? When? For how long? The questions spilled out, each one sharper than the last. I didn't mean for it to happen, she repeated, her voice breaking. It was never supposed to be like this. She stood up then, her hands outstretched, but I took a step back. I needed space, I needed distance, because hearing the truth from her was too much to bear all at once. My mind was racing, the pieces of our life, the love we had shared, all shattering before me. I didn't want to hurt you, she continued, her voice small now, like a confession. But she swallowed hard, her eyes filling with tears. I've been seeing him for months. I thought it was something I could control. But I couldn't. And now I don't know how to fix it. I couldn't respond. My chest was tight, my throat constricted, and all I could do was stand there, in shock, as the reality of her betrayal settled in. The earring, the lies, the long-hidden truth, it all made sense now in a way I hadn't been prepared for. I'm so sorry, she whispered, her voice shaking. I never meant for you to find out like this. But it was too late for apologies. The damage was done, and no apology could ever undo the pain that now lodged in my heart. I turned away, unable to look at her any longer. You don't get to apologize, I said, my voice trembling with anger and hurt. Not after everything. Not after this. I walked out of the room, unable to bear another second of the silence between us. The earring, the receipt, everything came crashing down on me like a wave, and as I slammed the door behind me, I realized there was no going back. What was left of us was broken, and the truth had shattered everything I had once believed. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do with myself. The car ride was a blur, everything moving past me in a haze. My hands were gripping the wheel so tightly that my knuckles were white. The pain in my chest made it hard to breathe, but I had to move. I had to get away from her, from the house, from the life we'd built together. I didn't know what I was running from, exactly. The truth? The betrayal? Or just the overwhelming weight of everything crashing down on me all at once? I ended up at a small park on the edge of town. It was quiet, almost too quiet. The last rays of sunlight filtered through the trees, casting long shadows on the grass. I parked the car and sat there for a while, staring out at the empty swings and the faded playground equipment. The world felt so still, so distant. How had it all come to this? My mind kept replaying her words, the way she had looked at me when she finally confessed. "I've been seeing someone else." Those words had burned through me like fire, searing everything else in their path. The earring, the lies, the sneaking around, it all made sense now. But even in the clarity of the truth, I didn't know what to do with it. How could I reconcile the woman I loved with the woman she had become? I sat there for an hour, maybe more, just trying to make sense of the chaos in my mind. The questions kept swirling, but no answers came. Was it something I had done? Something I hadn't done? Was this just a momentary lapse, or had it been building for months, even years? She had always been so careful, so calculating, and now I was left to pick up the pieces of a life I didn't recognize. By the time I finally got back to the house, the air felt thick. The silence inside was suffocating. She hadn't said anything since her confession. She hadn't followed me. She hadn't tried to fix things. Part of me wanted her to chase me, to beg for forgiveness, to show me that she still cared. But another part of me knew that nothing would ever be the same again. How could it be? I walked through the front door, and she was there, sitting on the couch. Her eyes were red, swollen from crying, but she looked at me with a kind of sadness that made my stomach twist. She didn't speak. She just sat there, waiting for me to say something. I didn't know what to say. There were a million things I wanted to ask, a million things I wanted to scream. But in that moment, I couldn't find the words. I couldn't look at her without feeling a crushing weight in my chest. "Where did you go?" she asked, her voice soft. "I don't know," I said, my voice flat, the anger still simmering just below the surface. "I just needed to get away." She nodded, as if she understood. But I knew she didn't. How could she? She had betrayed me, and now all I was left with were fragments of a relationship that had never been as perfect as I had convinced myself it was. "I'm sorry," she whispered, the words sounding hollow. "I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted you to find out like this." "Then why did you?" I asked, finally looking at her. My voice trembled with the weight of the question. "Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you just be honest?" She reached out, but I stepped back, not wanting her touch, not wanting her comfort. "I didn't know how," she said, her voice breaking. "I was scared. Scared of what would happen. Scared of losing you." "Then you should have thought about that before," I said, my voice rising now. "You should have thought about that before you started lying to me." "I didn't lie," she said, almost defensively. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." "I don't care about your excuses," I snapped. "I care about the fact that you've been seeing someone else. I care about the fact that I've been living a lie." She lowered her head, the tears now flowing freely. "I never wanted it to be like this," she said, her voice barely audible. "I didn't know how to stop. I don't know how to fix it." "You can't fix it," I said, my voice cold now. "You can't fix what's broken." She stood up then, her hands trembling. "Please, just let me explain. Let me make it right." I shook my head, stepping away from her. "No, you don't get to fix it. You've crossed a line that can't be undone." She collapsed onto the couch, her sobs filling the room, but I couldn't find it in myself to comfort her. The anger was too raw, the hurt too deep. I didn't know what came next. I didn't know what I was supposed to feel, what I was supposed to do. All I knew was that the woman sitting in front of me was no longer the person I thought I knew. "I don't know what to say anymore," I said, turning to walk away. "I don't know what we're supposed to do now." And with that, I left the room, leaving her behind, and stepped into the darkness of the night once again. The silence between us was unbearable, but the words I couldn't speak hung heavy in the air, suffocating everything in their path. I couldn't stay, not yet. I needed to think, to clear my mind, to understand how it had come to this. But I knew one thing for sure, nothing would ever be the same. The days that followed felt like a fog. Each morning I woke up hoping for clarity, hoping that the haze of anger and hurt would fade into something manageable. But every time I opened my eyes, the weight of what had happened crashed back into me. I couldn't escape it. The betrayal. The lies. The earring. Everything had unraveled so quickly, and I was left holding pieces of a life I wasn't sure was ever real. She didn't leave. I thought she might, at first. After the way I had stormed out that night, I thought maybe she'd finally packed her things and walked out the door, leaving me to deal with the wreckage alone. But she hadn't. She was still here, still walking through the rooms, still trying to pretend everything could go back to normal. But I knew it couldn't. And every time I saw her, every time she spoke to me with that soft, almost apologetic tone, it only reminded me of the chasm that now lay between us. We hadn't talked much since that night. She'd apologized. A lot. She'd cried, begged for forgiveness, and asked for a chance to explain. But I didn't want explanations. I didn't want her to tell me how sorry she was. I wanted answers, and I wasn't sure I would ever get them. On the third day after everything came to light, I found myself sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. She was in the other room, probably cleaning up or making more tea, but I didn't want to hear her footsteps. I didn't want to hear her voice. It was like the sound of a lie lingering in the air, and I couldn't breathe through it. I hadn't touched her earring since that night. It was still sitting in my coat pocket, tucked away like a secret I wasn't ready to confront. But today, I knew I had to. I had to understand what I was holding in my hands, why it felt like the symbol of everything that had gone wrong. I stood up, walked over to the counter, and pulled it out of my coat pocket. The metal caught the light as I held it in my palm, and I felt a strange sense of finality in that moment. I didn't know whose earring it was. I had no idea. But I needed to know. I needed to know what this meant and why she had kept it hidden. There was no reason for her to lie about something so trivial, so small, unless it was part of something bigger. And that was what haunted me, the thought that there was something bigger, something deeper, that she wasn't telling me. Are you going to keep avoiding me forever? Her voice startled me, and I looked up to find her standing in the doorway, watching me with an unreadable expression. She had said the same words so many times in the past few days, like a plea, a challenge, or maybe even a threat. I didn't know anymore. All I knew was that her presence, her sadness, was a constant reminder of the fracture between us. I don't know how to do this, I said quietly, the earring still in my hand. How am I supposed to just move on? How am I supposed to pretend like nothing's wrong? She stepped into the room, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. I'm not asking you to pretend, but I need you to look at me. I need you to listen to what I'm going to say. I didn't move. I didn't want to hear what she had to say. But there she was, waiting for me to make a choice, to decide whether I would listen to her or walk away. The air between us was thick, and my mind raced with every word she had said in the last few days. Apologies. Explanations. Regrets. None of it had made a difference, not really. I needed to hear the truth. Tell me about the earring, I said, my voice low. Whose is it? Her eyes widened, just for a moment, before she quickly looked away. She had known I would ask. It's mine, she said, but there was hesitation in her voice. It was something I bought for him. I didn't react right away. I couldn't. Her admission hung between us, and I was almost afraid to breathe, afraid that the sound of it would shatter whatever was left of my composure. For him, I repeated, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. You're telling me that this earring, the one I found in the car, belongs to the man you've been seeing? She nodded, her eyes brimming with tears. I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't want you to find out this way, but yes, it's for him. The words echoed in the silence. It was like a hammer striking my chest, a blow that left me gasping for air. All the things I had suspected, all the things I had feared, had come crashing down in that one simple sentence. She had been seeing someone else. And now, it was all laid bare, hanging between us, a truth I couldn't escape. I couldn't look at her anymore. I couldn't bear it. Why? I choked out. Why did you do it? Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you just end it with me before it got this far? She collapsed into the chair across from me, her sobs breaking through her words. I don't know. I didn't know how to stop. It started so small, so innocent. But then it grew, and I was too scared to admit it to you. I was too scared of losing you. I sat there, the earring still clutched in my hand, feeling the weight of her words settle over me like a blanket made of stone. You should have told me, I said, the anger now seeping into my voice. You should have been honest with me, no matter how hard it was. I would have respected that more than all this. She wiped her eyes, shaking her head. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to fix this, but I promise I'll do whatever it takes to make it right. Please just give me a chance to explain. But I couldn't listen to her anymore. I couldn't stand to hear her apologies. The truth was out, and there was no going back from it. The earring was the last piece of the puzzle, the proof that everything I had believed was a lie. She had chosen him, not me. And now, I had to figure out what to do with the broken pieces she had left behind. I didn't want to hear her apologies anymore. It was like hearing the same song playing on repeat, each word she said only making the silence more deafening. The more she spoke, the harder it became to breathe. Her voice, once the one that brought me comfort, now felt like a foreign language. Everything she said only reminded me of the gulf between us that had widened into something I couldn't bridge. I stood up abruptly, the earring still in my hand. I didn't want to look at it, but I couldn't seem to put it down. It felt like I was holding onto something that no longer belonged to me, something that wasn't mine to keep. I can't, I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. I can't keep pretending that this is just a misunderstanding. You've been lying to me, and I've been too blind to see it. She rose from the chair, taking a step toward me, her hand outstretched, but I stepped back, unable to take her touch. I never wanted to hurt you, she said, her voice breaking. I made a mistake. Please, just give me a chance to fix it. A chance. She was asking for something that felt impossible to give. How could I give her a chance when the foundation of everything we had, everything I thought we had, was now built on lies? How could I look at her the same way when the trust one had once placed in her had been shattered? I shook my head, the anger bubbling to the surface. Do you even know what you've done? I asked, my voice rising now. You didn't just sleep with someone else. You lied. You kept it from me. You thought you could keep everything hidden, and I didn't even see it. I didn't see how far it had gone. How long it had been going on. Her face crumpled at my words, and she took a shaky breath. I never wanted to hurt you. It was a mistake, a huge mistake. But please, I swear, it didn't mean anything to me. It's you I love. I laughed bitterly. Love? How can you love me and do something like this? How can you stand there and tell me you love me when you've been seeing him behind my back? You don't get to use that word anymore. Not like this. She flinched at my words, her eyes welling with tears again. I was confused. I didn't know how to stop. I felt so lost, and I didn't know who to talk to, so I made the worst decision of my life. It was hard to hear her say that, to see her break down in front of me. Part of me wanted to pull her into my arms, to tell her that it was okay, that we could work through it, but the other part of me, the part that was still angry, still hurting, couldn't allow it. The truth hung between us like a wall that we could never climb. You should have come to me, I said, my voice quieter now. If you felt lost, you should have come to me. But instead, you kept hiding it. You kept living a lie, and I kept loving you, blind to what was happening right in front of me. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. I didn't know how. I was so scared that you'd leave me. I didn't want to lose you. So I kept pretending everything was fine. I looked down at the earring in my hand again, unable to hold it any longer. I let it fall to the floor, the small clink of metal against wood echoing in the silence between us. The earring wasn't just an object anymore. It was the symbol of everything that had been taken from us, of everything we had lost. I can't fix this, I said, my voice breaking for the first time. I can't just forget what's happened. I can't just pretend that everything's going to be okay when it's not. She stepped closer, her voice desperate. Please, just listen to me. I made a mistake, but I want to make it right. I love you, and I'm so sorry. Please don't throw everything away. I'm not throwing everything away, I said, a mix of sadness and anger in my voice. You did that. You threw it away when you decided to lie to me. When you decided that this, I motioned between us, between the broken pieces of what had been our life together, wasn't worth being honest about. Her shoulders slumped, and for a moment, I saw the woman I had loved, the woman I thought I knew. But that woman was gone. The woman standing before me now was someone I didn't recognize, someone who had betrayed me in a way I couldn't fathom. She fell to her knees in front of me, her face buried in her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. I'm so sorry, she whispered through her tears. Please forgive me. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I didn't move. I didn't know how to comfort her, how to offer her anything when she had already taken everything from me. I stood there, paralyzed by the weight of it all, watching as the person I thought I knew shattered in front of me. I don't know how to fix this, I said quietly, my voice barely audible. I don't know if I even want to try anymore. She looked up at me, her eyes raw, her hands trembling. Please, don't give up on us. I can't lose you. I need you. But as she said those words, I knew. I knew that the us she was asking me to save no longer existed. The person I had been before the earring, before the lies, was gone. And as much as I wanted to believe in her, as much as I wanted to hold on to the life we had shared, I didn't know if I could ever look at her the same way again. I turned away from her, the weight of her tears heavy on my heart. But I knew it was over. There was no going back. The truth had torn through everything, and now, there was nothing left but the painful aftermath. The days after that moment were a blur. I could feel the emotional weight of everything pressing down on me, suffocating me. I didn't want to be here. I didn't want to be in this house with her, pretending that nothing had happened. But I also didn't know where else to go. I couldn't escape the place we'd built together, the memories we'd created, no matter how much they now felt like a lie. She gave me space, or at least, she tried to. I could tell she was waiting for me to make a decision, to decide what came next. But how could I? I didn't even know what I wanted anymore. The anger was still there, but it was a dull, exhausted anger now. The pain was raw, but it felt like a part of me that I couldn't remove. It was as if her betrayal had carved out a chunk of me that I couldn't fill. We barely spoke. Our conversations were short, strained, and filled with awkward silences. I didn't want to confront her again. I didn't want to relive that conversation where she admitted the truth. I couldn't keep hearing her apologies. What good was an apology when the damage had already been done? One evening, as I walked into the living room after work, I found her sitting on the couch, her eyes red from crying. The sight of her made my chest ache, but it didn't feel like love anymore. It just felt like pity. I didn't want to pity her. I wanted to understand her. I wanted to know how we had gotten here. She looked up when I entered, her hands clutching a tissue, her posture small and vulnerable. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, though I wasn't sure I was ready to hear anything more. "What's there left to say?" She stood up slowly, taking a step toward me. "Please, just let me explain." I stared at her, feeling the old emotions stirring, grief, anger, and confusion, and I just wanted it all to stop. I wanted to walk away from it. I wanted the easy way out. But instead, I found myself listening. "I never meant to hurt you," she said, her voice cracking. "I never thought it would go this far. I was lost, and I made the worst mistake of my life. I see that now, but I didn't then. I thought I could manage it. I thought I could keep you and him, but that was selfish. I was selfish." I took a step back, crossing my arms. "You should have been honest with me from the start," I said, my voice tight. "If you had told me you were unhappy, if you had told me something wasn't right, maybe we could have worked through it. But instead, you kept everything from me. You let me live in the dark while you carried on behind my back." "I know," she whispered, her face crumpling. "I don't deserve your forgiveness, and I'm not asking for it. I'm just asking for the chance to prove that I can change, to show you that I'm still the person you once loved." The tears were flowing now, but I didn't know if I could still care. The woman I had loved had been replaced with someone who had lied to me, someone who had betrayed my trust in a way I couldn't fully comprehend. How could I go back to that? How could I go back to a life that had been so fragile all along? "You've already proved everything to me," I said, my voice hard. "You've proved that love isn't enough. You've proved that trust isn't enough. And now you're asking me to rebuild it from the ground up. I don't know if I can do that." She shook her head, tears streaking down her cheeks. "I don't expect you to forgive me right now. I don't expect anything from you except a chance to fix it." I stood there, frozen, trying to process the depth of her words. The earring. The lies. The person who had once felt like my soulmate now stood before me as a stranger. And in that moment, I knew what had to be done, even though I wasn't ready for it. "I can't fix this," I said finally, my voice low. "Not with you. Not like this. We can't keep pretending. We've already lost too much." Her face collapsed, and she fell to her knees, sobbing openly now. "Please, don't leave me. I don't want to lose you." I didn't move. I couldn't. I had to be strong enough to walk away, to stop the cycle of hurt and betrayal. I couldn't keep hurting like this. "I'm sorry," I said, the words feeling like lead in my mouth. "But I think it's over. There's nothing left for us here." I turned to walk away, and as I reached for the door, I heard her voice one last time. "I love you. I always have." I just didn't know how to love myself first. I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. The silence that followed was suffocating, but it was the kind of silence that brought clarity. It was the kind of silence that told me that, even though it hurt, I had to let go. I couldn't keep living in the shadow of a love that had been broken beyond repair. As I closed the door behind me, the weight of the truth settled in. She had betrayed me. But more than that, I had betrayed myself by staying too long. And as I walked away from her, I realized that the hardest part wasn't leaving, it was finally accepting that we were never meant to be.